I guess I would kind of go back to, like, one of the stories I really enjoy telling in the book about how it is that we store these emotions in our body, how it comes to be that emotions end up in the body, is because we don't really process them in the moment, when we don't process them in the moment. So the body has these amazing capacities, and I'm sure you guys all know this, to handle overwhelm. And when we are allowed to just process and experience it, then we grow and we learn and we develop. And when we're not, then we don't. And so the body has these 5 ways of taking the energy that comes with the information that we're processing and discharging that energy if we can't do something with it. So, for example, if you were afraid and you were in the jungles in the past, you'd be afraid and you'd immediately channel that energy into fighting the saber-toothed tiger or running or doing whatever you're going to do. But in today's world, what we're afraid of can't necessarily be fought or fleed from physically. And so that energy gets stored in our physical body, and it amps and amps and amps. And even if it doesn't store in a pattern, it stores itself in a amplitude so that it just takes a breath to explode it, right? Mm-hmm. And so kind of one of the stories I really like to tell is of my daughters when they were little. We used to play with the neighborhood kids, and 2 of the neighborhood kids who used to come over to play with us came from a really professional family with very high standards, and the kids were great and the parents were great, but there was a lot of expectation. And one day we were painting T-shirts, and the kids had made these paintings, and one of the girls had this gorgeous earth on the T-shirt, and you could see the continents and the oceans, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I'm a little bit emotionally challenged or creatively challenged. There's a Freudian slip for you. And in that moment, I was emotionally challenged.
We all teach what we have to learn.
Yeah. So we're sitting down in the other room, and all the kids go out to play, and she lifts up her T-shirt, and one of the continents leaks into the ocean, and she's devastated. She doesn't know how to handle it, and she's standing in front of the T-shirt, and her hands are opening and closing, and her body is shaking. And the part of me that is creatively challenged wanted to diminish her experience by telling her, it's okay, don't worry about it, it's fine, look, it's beautiful, it's just a little mistake, who's even going to notice it? And not allow her that moment to process it. And then another part of me that's like, supermom wanted to tell her, oh, it's okay, sweetheart, don't worry, and again, diminish it, from a different motive. But both motives would have the same result. And so instead I just kind of sat there with her and observed and gave her the power of a witness and allowed her to, she shook, her body shook, her jaws opened and closed, she sighed, she didn't cry, she trembled a little bit, and then all of a sudden, big, huge sigh, big smile on her face, and she runs outside to play. So that by the time her parents came, she was so proud of that T-shirt, and all she wanted to do was show it off. And it's like if I had interrupted that process, of course she wouldn't have been proud of the T-shirt, but every time she saw the T-shirt, all she would have seen is the failure, not, whatever she came to after her time with it. And doing that once isn't going to change her belief about herself, but if every single time she makes that kind of or has that kind of a moment, if she's not allowed to process it, pretty soon the belief develops that she's not a creative person or that she can't do art or that she's a failure in general, and it begins to circumscribe and direct the way that she approaches her life. And so it just goes back to how important it is to just be in that moment and allow your body to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And also how many times we see somebody else in an uncomfortable situation emotionally, and many times for our own benefit we want them to be out of that feeling because it doesn't feel very comfortable to observe either. So it's a great reminder to allow that witnessing for somebody else as well as for self.